All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kim McAllister, Vice Provost for Research, Scholarly Inquiry, and Creative Activity, and I want to welcome you to our celebration for faculty, authors, and artists. What a beautiful way to start the event, and what a crowd. I'd like for us to start with a round of applause for our student pianist, Gaspare Loduca. So, absolutely beautiful. So today is about recognizing an essential pillar of our academic community, the production of knowledge, the vibrant expression of ideas, and the profound power of scholarship and creative work to shape our shared understanding of the world. It's fitting that we gather here in the Z. Smith Reynolds Library within this beautiful space named for Archie Ammons, a two-time National Book Award recipient and a distinguished Wake Forest alumnus. Until the pandemic, the library served as the host for an annual event recognizing our faculty, authors, and editors, but the event has not occurred since 2020. So some of you may know that I joined at Wake just about a year and a half ago, and from the time that I got here, I started investigating ways that we might celebrate the scholarship and the creative work of our faculty. And at the suggestion of former Provost Michelle Gillespie, and through a collaborative effort initiated by Assistant Provost Mary Muchane and sparked by Kathy Shields, we fostered a rewarding partnership between the ZSR Library, between Wake the Arts, and the Humanities Institute to bring this tradition back. But we are not just returning to the past. Today's event expands to celebrate our colleagues in the creative arts and includes the announcement of the annual Gladding Author and Artist Awards. Personally, I'm especially delighted to see the celebration return and to do so with renewed energy and a fresh format. And we hope this marks not just a revival, but actually a reimagining of the tradition that we can continue to build together in the years ahead. So each fall, we come together to celebrate research and discovery across the university. And so it feels only right that in the spring, we create space to honor the books, performances, and creative works that bring ideas to life in ways that reach broad audiences, spark dialogue, and endure over time. Scholarship and creative expression are not separate endeavors. They're deeply interconnected ways of asking questions, of telling stories, and of advancing human understanding. In my role in the provost office, I have the distinct privilege of witnessing the extraordinary breadth and depth of our faculty's contributions. From groundbreaking research across the natural and social sciences to the profound narratives of the humanities and the transformative power of the creative arts, your work exemplifies both disciplinary excellence and collective commitment to inquiry. These endeavors do more than merely advance our understanding. They challenge our assumptions, they spark reflection, and they bridge our campus to the vital communities and to the global conversations that shape our shared world. Events like this also remind us that scholarship is not a solitary endeavor. Behind every book, every article, every composition or exhibition, there is a community of colleagues, collaborators, students, editors, and supporters who make that work possible. So today is an opportunity not only to celebrate individual accomplishments, which we're going to do, but also to recognize the collective intellectual life that defines this university. I would like to take a moment to thank those who made this event possible. We're truly grateful to our partners in the Humanities Institute, Wake the Arts, and Z. Smith Reynolds Library for their support and collaboration. I also want to extend a special thank you to the Planning Committee. And so when I call your name, raise your hand so you can get a round of applause. Clarice Gallagher, she's all the way in the back. We've got Jennifer Greiman right up here in the front. Mary Michane right here. Kathy Shields is standing up in the back. We've got Christina Soriano up here in front. And Sophia Trujillo, who's also in the back next to Clarice. So we want to thank you all for your thoughtful and tireless work in bringing this event to life. And above all, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the faculty that we honor today and to our presenters for the generosity of sharing your wonderful work with us. Your scholarship and creative expression are fundamental to the intellectual vitality of this institution, and we're profoundly proud to celebrate your accomplishments. Finally, I'll end by expressing my sincere gratitude to all of you for participating in this event. This serves to strengthen our shared culture of community, which is super important, and it provides a vital opportunity for us to honor the collective achievements of our colleagues. So now, please join me in welcoming Lauren Presley, who's the Dean of Z. Smith Reynolds Library.
Thank you, Kim, and to our colleagues who helped organize this event, and to everyone for making time to be here today. I know it's a busy time of the semester, and it means a lot to see so many people here. I want to start by saying that I'm genuinely happy to be in this room, and I don't mean to say that in the way that people often do at the beginning of remarks, but because I mean this in a literal way. I'm still relatively new to coming back to Wake Forest University, and one of the things that happens when you're new is that you're constantly encountering evidence of the kind of place that you've actually landed in, and this event is that type of evidence, the celebration of research and scholarship. I also want to acknowledge that this is an event that we're bringing back, as Kim said, and when it went away, as so many things did during the pandemic era, I always think it's worth naming when you bring it back, because it's a statement that it's something that mattered so much that it was worth bringing back, when it's easy often to take that as an opportunity to change direction. This event says that the work that you do beyond the classroom, the work you do in your disciplines in the world matters and deserves to be seen. I believe that, and I'm glad that ZSR gets to be a home for this event alongside our wonderful partners and colleagues in the Provost Office and Wake the Arts and the Humanities Institute. This collaboration feels exactly right for a celebration that spans so many forms of creative and scholarly life. When I read through the list of works that we're celebrating today, and I always do that, read things very carefully as a librarian, what struck me was the sheer range of what scholarship means. We have books from university presses and films that have traveled to international festivals. We have performances that drew audiences in Munich and works that are still finding new viewers months later. We have paintings and sculptures and choreography. We have new editions of textbooks that students across the country will learn from. And we have original arguments that will shape how scholars in those fields think for years. That breadth is not incidental. It's the whole point of an event like this. This room holds poetry and empirical research and legal analysis and creative filmmaking. And they're all genuinely ways of making knowledge. They're ways of asking what's true, what's beautiful, what's important, what's possible. And the library holds that same question in like the core of our bones. Every discipline, every method, every form. What I want you to know is that seeing your work in this list made me proud to be here at Wake Forest in a way that I didn't entirely anticipate. I came to Wake excited about the library's role in this institution's next chapter, and what this list tells me is that there's an intellectual and creative life here that I'm just here to support and amplify further. My job is to be a good partner to what's already happening here. So before I close, I have a couple things I just want to make sure to share with you all. First, if you haven't already, I'd encourage you to walk across the hall to the Scholars Commons, where you'll see sculptures by Rudy Shepard, one of the artists that we're honoring here today. They've been recently installed permanently, and it's a real gift to have this work woven into the fabric of the library as a place people come to think every day. Second, the exhibit of faculty work here in this room will remain up through at least the end of the semester. So please come back, bring your students, bring your colleagues, take a look. It's not a one afternoon celebration. This is an ongoing invitation. And Kathy Shields shared with me the QR codes. If you scan them, will help you be able to check them out from the library. So if you wanted to give further, you can do that there. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say directly. I see your work, the library sees your work, and we consider ourselves advocates for it, not just in terms of making it findable and accessible and preserving it, though we certainly want to do all of that, but also in the sense that we're paying attention, we're really excited about your work, and we want it to help it reach the people who need it. So thank you all for letting us celebrate with you today, and welcome back to a tradition that's always worth celebrating. And with that, I will pass the mic to Christina Storiano. Or is it you? Yeah.
Okay, this is exciting. Hi, everybody. Happy Advising Week. It is so great to see all of you here today. The first thing I get to do is really exciting. It is a time to honor a colleague who's no longer with us, but whose memory is deeply a part of all of us. So I'm Christina Soriano. I'm the Reynolds Professor of Dance and the co-director of the Wake the Arts Center and the newly developed Neuro Arts Lab. I am excited to also say I'm standing here to represent Wake the Arts, which is an initiative that began 9 years ago through the Provost's office, which was dedicated to providing transformational arts experiences across all corners of campus. Wake the Arts has a mechanism that helps so many of those experiences possible, called the Wake the Arts Center. This is an endowed center under the Provost's office, and we support projects ranging from guest artist visits to performances, art commissions, to course enhancements. And in this academic year alone, we supported 35 projects from faculty, staff, and students, and we have a couple more still coming. So if you would like to learn more about ways your work can be supported by Wake the Arts, I encourage you to visit our website. We have a really easy proposal form. And now I'll shift to why we're here, to celebrate the Gladding Artist and Author Awards today. The Gladding Awards are named after the late Samuel T. Gladding, a beloved professor of counseling at Wake. I was fortunate to know Dr. Gladding for many years. His deep empathy as a counselor, colleague, leader, and friend on campus is a model for all of us. We miss him deeply. I was fortunate to get to know Sam more because of my friendship with Claire, who is his beautiful and amazing wife, and she is here today somewhere. Right there, right in front of me. Great. Yes, let's give Claire a round of applause. Claire Gladding is a ZSR Board of Visitor member and also a beloved member of our Wake Forest family and a beloved member of my family. For over a year after I delivered my second daughter, Penny, Claire cared for her while I came back to work at Wake Forest. So we treasure Claire and we miss Sam. And today I just want to share a couple memories that colleagues have shared about working with Sam. My colleague Chris Zaleski, who directs our documentary film program and co-directs Wake the Arts with me, reminded me about a quirky animated film called Adventures in Mental Health that he got to work on with Sam. And Chris described his warmth, insights, and humor as things he will always remember and cherish in their time working together. So this annual award honors 2 Wake Forest faculty members, an artist and an author, who have made significant contributions to their fields. These faculty colleagues receive a monetary award and an opportunity like this to be celebrated publicly with colleagues and friends. I'm honored to be presenting this year's Artist Award to Cagney Gentry, Associate Professor of the Practice in the Department of Communication. This award recognizes Cagney's filmmaking, which spans both narrative and documentary work, and includes his most recent release, Other Houses. Other Houses is a hybrid film that follows an immigrant named Radka Winslow as she must choose between pursuing the American dream or returning to Bulgaria to live a more creative life. Other Houses is a poetic work that blends humor, improvisation, and romance to offer an intimate portrait of a woman caught between 2 worlds. The film reflects on the meaning of home, art, and belonging. The film premiered at the Film Fest Knox in November, where it received the Best Director Award in the American Regional Cinema Competition. After the Knoxville premiere, it received praise from Filmmaker Magazine and Movie Notebook. In addition to his ambitious creative work, Cagney is an invaluable colleague within the creative community at Wake Forest. He serves as a bridge builder across departments and is a member of our Wake the Arts Advisory Board. Finally, Cagney truly embodies the teacher-scholar idea. Please join me in acknowledging Cagney. Please stand and be recognized wherever you are, Cagney. And now I'll shift things to Jennifer Greiman. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you. I'm Jennifer Greiman. I'm a professor of English and director of the Humanities Institute at Wake Forest, which is celebrating its 15th year. And I'm so happy to be presenting the Author Award. This year's Gladding Author Award goes to Andrea Gomez Cervantes. Andrea is assistant professor of sociology and a really valuable member of the sort of like wide community of humanists and humanist-adjacent people on campus. She has led a working group for faculty seeking mentorship across career milestones. She has been an awardee of our summer writing grants, and she receives this award for her first book, Illegality in the Heartland, Latinidad, Indigeneity, and Immigration Policies During Times of Hate. Published by the University of California Press, one of the premier publishers of sociology research in the United States, the book centers the voices and stories of indigenous and mestizo Latino immigrants in Kansas during the first Trump administration, to reveal the cultural and linguistic diversity of immigrant communities in the Midwest, the deep impacts of policies that hypercriminalize immigrants, and the resilience of those communities in times of hate. The book focuses on ethnographic research collected and conducted during the first Trump administration, but Andrea opens the book in the terrifying first weeks of 2025 to drive home how much more urgent these stories have become. Please join me in congratulating Andrea on this necessary and timely work. Please stand and be recognized. And can we ask Cagney and Andrea to come up, please? And also Claire. And also Claire.
Congratulations.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Mike Ramirez. A lot of you don't know me because I'm only a year and a half into this position, but I'm happy to be here as chair of the Department of Sociology and very happy to be here to help introduce names of the authors who have published in the social sciences in the year 2025. And if you are here, as we see your name and I think your face and the cover of your book, if you could please stand or wave so we can acknowledge you, please. So from anthropology, we have Margaret Bender and we'll do one at a time. Margaret Bender and Timothy Gitson. He still gets a pass. And from the School of Business, Jeffrey D. Cam with 3 titles in 1 year. I don't know how that's possible, but congratulations. And from computer science, we have, oh, there he is. All right, Gray Ballard from computer science, thank you. From counseling, we have Seth C. Hayden. From law, we have 4 authors. Christine Coughlin. Mark Hall. Wayne Logan. And Ellen Murphy. Politics and International Affairs, we have Adam Linton. And from sociology, as we know, we have Andrea Gomez Cervantes. Thank you and congratulations to all of our authors. Thank you for your contributions to scholarship in the last year and certainly in the years before then. And one more round of applause for all of our authors. And up next, we have the first of our 3 slams. So we are, I know, that's a cool word. I like saying that. So we're now going to have 3 brief presentations or slams. Each one is going to be 3 minutes long. And first up is Seth Hayden from counseling.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Many thanks to Wake Forest for putting on this forum. Grateful to be with you all. Grateful that you all are here. Quick note about Sam Gladding being in the Department of Counseling. I think it's important to acknowledge. He was my colleague. One of the reasons why I'm at Wake Forest, and that can't be overstated, was across the hall from me. And he's deeply missed, and very glad that Claire is here. And congratulations to the award winners for your notable work, and all of my fellow co-authors. So as you can see, I wrote about integrating career development and mental health. And so within the counseling profession, there's a lot of different topics that we can focus on. And one of the things that's always been interesting to me is how does career development and mental health connect? So you all are sitting here in this room. We're all workers. We're all involved in aspects of our career. We also have families and other things in our life. And so for me, it's really interesting to think about how these things coalesce. My own journey, I was kind of a wandering soul. It took me a while to find myself. So also there's a personal element to this. Within the counseling profession, career really is what started it as a distinct discipline. So Frank Parsons' work in the early 1900s in Boston is what really kind of started counseling as a distinct discipline within the helping professions, and so this builds a little bit on that. There's a lot of evidence that talks about how aspects of mental health, depression, anxiety, traumatic concerns can connect with aspects of career and career decision making. And so I talk a fair amount about that. My hope for this resource is that everyone here will buy it. But if not, I'm happy to talk with you about it if you would rather not. But I want it to be an accessible resource for educators, researchers, and practitioners. So it's not necessarily a textbook, although it could be. But I want it to be something that someone can pull off the shelf who's in a counseling office and they're encountering someone who's struggling with a career concern, and then they can use this to figure out how do I help them with their mental health and career simultaneously. Just a couple of things in relation to the book itself. So the different chapters, first of all, I talk about the relevance of career development and mental health. Also talk about how these things are related, so I go through some of the research. I also talk about marginalized populations in career development. So when we think about career, not everyone has a singular experience, and so I talk about that and how do we adapt to those things. And then I talk about the integration of those things in the counseling practice. How do you support both aspects of career and mental health simultaneously as a professional counselor, researcher, and educator? So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and glad to be with you all. Thank you.
And next we have the 2025 Gladding Author Awardee, Andrea Gomez Cervantes.
Thank you for this recognition. This means a lot to me. I was actually really worried about my book coming out, and so this really means a lot coming from the university and the meaning behind the award too. My book, Illegality in the Heartland, Indigeneity and Immigration Policies During Times of Hate, interrogates existing understandings of Latinidad, that is, who is considered Latino and who is considered illegal. Since the 1980s, immigration laws and their enforcement have created a stereotype of undocumented immigrants as a racialized group, tying perceptions of physical and phonetic traits associated with Latinos. However, not all Latino immigrants fit these stereotypes or labels. Some do more than others. So the book centers on the voices and experiences of indigenous and mestizo Latin American immigrants in the American heartland during the first Trump administration to understand how they navigate a context where they are targeted as illegal. Between 2016 to 2019, I conducted an in-depth ethnography and interviews with immigrants, many undocumented, who lived in the heartland. I spent time with immigrants in their homes and their communities, during celebrations and during difficult days. This book has several contributions to the academy, to my discipline, sociology, as well as to the immigrant communities where this work was conducted. The first contribution is an investigation in the lives of Latin American immigrants in the heartland, focusing on the case of Kansas during a period of heightened anti-immigrant legislation and sentiment during the first Trump administration. So this book provides a critical case study through which to examine the intersections of immigration law and racialization mechanisms in spaces where immigrants are not yet an established part of the public imaginary, even as they are main contributors to their communities. The second major contribution is the unveiling of the differentiation between indigenous and mestizo Latin Americans' access to resources, to the ways that they navigate illegality, and their contrasting experiences of suspicions of illegality within a white majority space. So although all immigrants experience the fear of deportation, a constant uncertainty and exclusion tied to undocumented status, it is gender and ethno-racial divides that also mark their access to resources and to which navigate these circumstances. The third major contribution of my book involves the theoretical orientation, bringing a colonial analysis to bear understandings of contemporary immigration policies. I argue that the colonial ideologies and structures that promote and justify the marginalization and exploitation of indigenous people in Latin America travel with migrants to their destinations and continue to cement ethnic divisions in their new communities in the U.S. Immigration policies exacerbate these divides through the racialization of illegality, linking perceptions of illegality or lack of immigration status to a visible stereotype of Mexican origin and Latinos more broadly. As I finished this book, I never imagined we would be living in the immigration landscape that we're facing today. With the largest budget allocated to DHS to support the mass detention and deportation of anyone who is deemed illegal, regardless of their actual status, immigrant families are living in a constant state of fear. This climate, however, has also created spaces of solidarity. So I hope this book can help us reconsider our own positions, roles, and relationships with immigrants to make our own communities welcoming for all. Thank you.
And third, we have Adam Lerton from Politics and International Affairs.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to present my scholarship today. It's a real professional honor to be given this opportunity. So I'm a assistant professor in the Department of Politics and International Affairs, and I'm also a scholar of Russia and the former Soviet Union. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 marked a colossal rupture in the international order. To many, Putin's seizure of territory, his nostalgia towards Russia's imperial past, and his denial of Ukraine's sovereignty pointed to one thing, that Russian imperialism was maybe even the key driver behind the war. This has led to serious and heated debates among policymakers, activists, and scholars about the need to decolonize Russia on the basis that Russia remains an empire both beyond its borders as well as within its borders, home to upwards of 190 distinct ethnic groups that make up around a quarter of its population. And so this book here is the first scholarly attempt to take stock of these discussions and try and trace their political implications. And I should also acknowledge my co-authors, colleagues here who prefer to remain anonymous due to the very serious personal risks of writing and publishing about such topics in Russia nowadays. So what does decolonizing Russia actually mean? Well, we found it means very different things. For some people, it's about breaking the Russian Federation apart into smaller successor states. For others, it's more about how Russia understands its own imperial pasts or how scholars approach the study of Russia. To make sense of this book focuses on three main arenas. First, we look at decolonization as domestic politics, how social movements employ this language to challenge the unequal relationship between Moscow and its regions. Second, we look at transnational aspects, how Russia and its adversaries use and promote decolonization for geopolitical aims. And finally, we look at scholarship, how academics are rethinking the study of Russia. And we ultimately make two key arguments. First, to understand these debates, we really need to look to Russia's imperial past. The experience of Russian imperialism was highly varied across space and time, meaning that some of the discussions we're seeing, especially when it comes to geopolitics, tend to oversimplify a pretty complex reality on the ground. Second, the language of decolonization is now part and parcel of Russian politics itself. In some cases, it's used by opposition forces, but it's also interestingly been adopted by the Kremlin itself. So Putin has now explicitly stated that he sees decolonization as an attempt by Western countries to break apart Russia, while at the same time, the Kremlin in its foreign policy is positioning itself as a champion of anti-colonial resistance in its growing engagement with countries in the global south. So we see this language evolving in real time, and ultimately a lot will depend upon how decolonization is perceived by individuals on the ground, their goals, their constraints, and of course the trajectory of the Russian regime. And in terms of next steps, I was fortunate to sign a contract with Academic Studies Press to translate this book into Russian in the coming year, so hopefully this will reach a broader audience in countries where Russian is still widely spoken and read. So thank you once again for the opportunity.
Okay, I'm back, and I'm so pleased that I get to honor artists and art scholars in departments largely in Scales Fine Arts Center. I'll start in the Department of Art, and I will read just briefly a little bit about each person. Molly Kaderka, who you'll hear from shortly, will be talking about her gorgeous large-scale paintings that were part of an extraordinary exhibit called The Darkness. Our emeritus professor, Dr. David Lubin, for his newest book, Ready for My Close-Up, The Making of Sunset Boulevard and the Dark Side of the Hollywood Dream. Also, Rudy Shepard, you heard about his works that have been installed here in the library. He also just installed a work at Davidson as a public artwork. But in 2025, he also had an extraordinary year with paintings in a gorgeous exhibition in Haynes Gallery called The Darkness. And finally, in the art department, Joel Tauber produced a film called Sycamore, A Love Story, and it's a feature film about a tree. Sycamore, get it? And it won the Best Docu-Feature at the Charichara International Film Festival in India. So if my art department colleagues are here, please stand and be recognized. We move next to dance, and it's kind of weird. I guess I'm giving myself a shout out. I got a grant from the Arts Council. That was pretty cool. I got to present some work internationally, and I'm just so privileged to do this here at Wake Forest. Also, my colleague Tina Yarborough-Liggins, who's not here right now because she's working on my research study and she's dancing with older adults right now at the Intergenerational Center. But Tina Yarborough was honored for a statewide teaching award in the state of North Carolina. She produced work at North Carolina Central University, and also yes, it was the Arts Legacy Award, and she did some work as well with the International Black Theater Festival. So let's take a moment and give a shout out to Tina. And now I'll move to the Department of Music, and you'll hear from my colleague, Dr. J. Aaron Hardwick, in a few moments. He had an extraordinary year, and I'll just let him tell you all about it. But think about video game music, conducting. That's Aaron, and he does this work extraordinarily. But this year, particularly, it was in Munich, and let me just read he conducted the Munich Radio Symphony Orchestra, which is one of the most preeminent orchestras, and it's a radio orchestra that he put together in the full-length season concert Let's Play. This performance was also live streamed to thousands of viewers and continues to attract viewership on the Greater Bavarian Broadcasting Network, say that 3 times fast. And the performance of Perennial Order was subsequently released in August on the BR Classic Digital and also the Noxus label. So Aaron, I know you're here somewhere. Congratulations. Please stand and be recognized. Theater, yay, okay. So I'm delighted to honor the work of 2 of our colleagues in theater. First, Kevin Frazier, who designed lights and sound for 11 professional productions in just 2025, including a world premiere, and he received nominations for 2 Hampshire Theater Awards. New Hampshire Theater Awards, thank you. That's a state in New England. He also, in 2025, won the Kulinik Family Omicron Delta Kappa Award, which demonstrates his commitment to being an excellent teacher, scholar, artist, servant at Wake Forest. Kevin, congratulations to you. Let's have you stand and be recognized. And Stephen Rentmore, who's probably rehearsing Jagged Little Pill, come see it, it's our musical. It's opening next? April 2nd. April 2nd, thank you. Stephen Rentmore directed Don Giovanni at the Lexington Opera House, Love and Information, and also Ballymore at University of North Carolina School of the Arts, and he also mentored a production at the Lexington Opera House, The Marriage of Figaro. So congratulations to Stephen Rentmore. Okay, and now we're going to start our 3 slams in the arts category. And I will invite J. Aaron Hardwick in music, Molly Kaderka in art, and Cagney Gentry in communications to come and share their slams. Thanks.
Wow, that was great. Thank you. I don't know how I can follow that. Amazing. First and foremost, thank you everyone for being here. What an honor. And it's humbling to be amongst colleagues and the award winners who do such incredible work. And what a community we have here at Wake. And so to be given this kind of platform is very humbling. So thank you. My name is J. Aaron Hardwick. I am the conductor of the Wake Forest University Symphony Orchestra, which I'm very proud of. You should come to concerts if you don't yet. They're amazing. Our students are absolutely incredible and very talented amongst all the other things they do, as all of our artists can speak to. So we're very proud of them. That said, in February 2025, I stood in front of the Munich Radio Orchestra in Munich, Germany, conducting a concert titled Let's Play. But this wasn't just a concert. It was a year-long collaboration between video game publishers, composers, musicians, managers, and other artists around Germany and the rest of the world. It was also a question for this concert. What does the orchestra become when we take seriously the music of our time? Because Let's Play was a full program of video game music. Now, for some, that still sounds odd and unexpected. But here's what I've come to believe through not only my work as a conductor, educator, and scholar. Video game music is not outside of the classical tradition. It extends it. These scores are structurally complex, emotionally rich, and deeply connected to how modern audiences experience sound and storytelling. And increasingly, they're one of the primary ways in which audiences experience orchestral music for the first time. Whether that's your kids, your grandkids on the Switch or the Xbox, all of which I own. Anyway, so it's research. It has to be. So standing on that podium, I wasn't just conducting repertoire. I was navigating a meeting point between concert hall and console, between tradition and innovation, between audiences we have and audiences we're trying to reach. As a conductor, my job is often misunderstood. I don't make sound. I shape how people listen to it. And in this project, that meant working with extraordinary musicians to treat this repertoire with the same depth, rigor, and artistic seriousness as any Mahler symphony or any great opera. Because if we don't, we're not just dismissing a genre, we're dismissing an entire generation of listeners. One of the most powerful moments of this project wasn't in the hall, it was online. This concert was streamed globally on Twitch to over 26,000 people live that night. In addition, Perennial Order was produced as a digital single on every platform, so like my other colleagues, go buy it. It's great. It's a great piece. You can listen to it on Spotify and Amazon Music and Apple Music and where else you get your streams. That said, it's also been released on the BR Classic label and the Naxos label, as Christina mentioned. It's not just a statistic, it's access and it's expansion. That's the orchestra stepping beyond its traditional boundaries and into a broader cultural conversation. And that's really what my work is about. Not replacing canon, but expanding the frame. Not lowering standards, but redefining relevance. Because the future of the orchestra isn't about preserving what has been. It's about recognizing where music is already alive and having the courage to meet it there. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you all for being here today. I want to echo, this is such an honor to be here. Okay, so hello, my name is Molly Kaderka, and I'm the Assistant Professor of Painting here at Wake Forest. And today I'm going to be sharing the work from a recent exhibition called The Darkness, which was at the newly renovated Haynes Gallery in the Scales Fine Arts Building. So the work in this show employs the genre of landscape painting to invoke a sense of awe, mystery, and reverence for the natural world. And it invites viewers to reflect on their own place within it. And through my large-scale paintings and installations, I'm trying to rethink landscape imagery by collapsing the distance between the sky and the earth and presenting them as being together. So when we think about a traditional landscape painting, those paintings rely on a distant, flat horizon line, which is an illusory framework that separates ground and sky. And while this does reflect our lived human experience, it is limited and anthropocentric. The earth is, of course, curved and constantly shifting. The sky is not just a dome, but it's an opening to an expansive universe from which all of the elements that make up our bodies and the world originate. So for my work, I try to compress these two realms. I collapse linear perspective and reconfigure the horizon into immersive, often circular compositions, asking viewers to focus on ground and sky simultaneously, rather than on the distance between them. This, I hope, allows viewers to experience the landscape as something immediate and present, rather than something as distant. But now, I do have to tell you a little bit about how I actually make these things. So let me skip through a little bit. The material techniques behind both of these works, but especially the hanging works called lumen matter, is a process called paper marbling. And this is a traditional 18th century craft technique, usually used for decorative papers or bookmaking. And I've adapted that to make these large-scale immersive forms and sculptures. Okay, play it. There we go. So this is a little video of how marbling actually happens. So marbling involves floating fluid paint on the surface of a water bath that's been thickened. And you can use the surface tension of the water, fluid dynamics, and various tools to manipulate the surface and create different textures and designs. Once the image is formed, you can then transfer it onto paper, or in this case, fabric, as you can see. And we repeated this about 8 times It took 2 months to plan it, 3 days to execute it, and then, 6 more months to complete it and put it actually together. But the marbling bath functions as a kind of condensed version of a landscape itself. It's fluid, it's fragile, and it's in constant motion. So what you see is not just an image, but a record of that transformation. Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge that it's ironic that I am about to use a script to read my remarks about a film that I made that is unscripted and improvised. It's two things, really. It's, like Christina said, advising week, maybe, a little bit of lenience there, but also, I was honestly a little scared by the email that said we had to speak in 3 minutes, so I wanted to make sure I got everything in. So first of all, I want to say sincerely thank you to Wake the Arts for the nomination, and thank you to Samuel Gladding and his wife, Claire. The vision of his smiling face in the halls of Carswell Hall, both when I was a student and as a new faculty member, are some of my favorite visual memories of that space. So thank you to him, and thank you to you as well, Claire. This film, Other Houses, is the second project I've made with Tom Sutherland since 2018, when we first dabbled in mixing reality with fiction. We suspected that real life around us could be collected, molded, and curated into a fictional story using real people mostly being themselves. We started with our main actor, our inspiration. Really, she's our collaborator. Her name is Katerina Stoikova. In all 3 films about Katerina or with Katerina, she plays a different character, just a little bit different than herself. Her life and stories often create the spark for the film we end up making. But then we make an outline, scenes written as prose, no dialogue, often fiction with a tinge of reality or vice versa, and sometimes full-on reality. We put those elements into a playful and cinematic collage that we hope feels like fiction at times and feels like nonfiction at times. Storylines are sometimes pure documentary. Radka in the film Other Houses is selling her house and falling for a summer fling. She's teaching her final poetry workshop before leaving for home in Bulgaria. This class was a real class. Nothing we did was scripted. We shot it just like an observational documentary, and we wove that real story into the slightly fictionalized story of Radka going back home. What we've come to believe is that we can never conjure up as complex and sublime a story as the one reality will present to us if we're looking for it. And it doesn't hurt the integrity of reality to have a little fictional stage to stand on. Filming a movie like this with non-professional actors requires a lean crew and a personal touch. Tom and I often do everything, with the occasional helping hand of a friend or a student. For the actors, it must feel like making a fun project with some friends that they trust. I can't overstate how uncommon this is. Many of the low-budget independent films that we've been in competition with were made for anywhere between $250,000 and $1 million. We made this for $11,000. It's the only way to do it and still capture something with the exhilaration of fiction and the authenticity of documentary. As a result, you may see some of the handmade imperfections in the film, but we prefer to think of that as human patina, because in this era, we need all of that we can get. Thank you again for this award. Thank you for being here, and congratulations to all the other awardees.
Welcome back from snacking. There'll be time afterwards as well. I am really honored to be celebrating the authors of the many, 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 many books that were published in the humanities in 2025. Faculty across the humanities published 18 books in 2025 on topics as wide-ranging as the early colonization of Virginia, comedy in 3rd century BCE Rome, and the fashions of American religious communities. Before we hear from our humanities colleagues about their works, with 3 slams, I want to have everyone join me in congratulating the following folks from the Department of Classics. And as I read your name, THM, would you please stand up and let us celebrate you? THM Geller-Goad, I know I saw him earlier. From the School of Divinity, Jill Y. Craneshaw. Gary Gunderson. Melanie L. Harris. Catherine A. Shaner. And Corey D.B. Walker. From the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures, Chanel Yu. From the Department of English, we have 2 slides. Sorry. Amy Catanzano. Marian Earhart. Jennifer Greiman. Jefferson Holdridge. Derek Lee. Joanna Rocco, publishing under the name Joanna Lowell. And Randy Solomon. From the Department of History, Anthony Parent. From the Department of Philosophy, Adam Kadlak, who we'll be hearing from shortly. And from the Department of the Study of Religions, Lynn Neal. I'm going to introduce the 3 authors together. So to tell us about her wonderful book of essays, Lucky Bodies, I'm very happy to introduce Marianne J. Earhart, Associate Teaching Professor of Writing in the Department of English and the Writing Program. To talk about Disneyland and the meaning of life, I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Adam Kadlak, Teaching Professor of Ethics and Political Philosophy in the Department of Philosophy. And finally, for our last book slam of the evening, I'm happy to introduce Dr. Derek Lee, Assistant Professor of 20th and 21st Century American Literature in the Department of English, who will be talking about the science and culture of the paranormal. So, Marianne, to begin.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here and still being here as the day continues. Yeah, it's really an honor to just be invited to do this, to talk a little bit about my work and to hear all of your work. We don't do this enough, I feel like. It's walking up and down this exhibit here. I just feel like super energized by being with you all. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little about this book, Lucky Bodies. It's an essay collection, a personal essay collection about motherhood, care, and imagination. I started writing this book about 10 years ago. The impetus was a bedtime story I was reading my son. He was about 4. I was reading the book Blueberries for Sal by Richard McCloskey, which, if you don't know it, it's a classic book from my own childhood, but it's about a mother and daughter who are blueberry picking on the aptly named Blueberry Hill. And on the other side of this hill, there's a mother bear who is with her baby bear, and they are also gathering and feasting on berries. Along the way, a combination of daydreaming and maybe some mild neglect leads to a mix-up. And Sal discovers that she's following a mother bear, and the baby bear finds that he's following Sal's mother. something that has struck me about this ever since I was a kid was that while there's some fear in the story, there's never really any danger. Everyone's just there for nourishment. So I'm reading the story to Nolan, and he says to me, "Mom, what's the mother's name in this book?" And so we look through the book together, and we find she has no name. She is Sal's mother. So then we start to go to the other storybooks on the nightstand, and we find that none of the mothers have names. This makes sense, right? To a small child, mom is a name. But I felt like there was a question under the question, which was, what's her story? And this question just kind of broke me open. I was a young mom to two very young kids, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. I hadn't written in a long time. I hadn't slept in a long time. Like, really, some people's kids sleep. I don't know. That's really cool for you. Anyway, that night I felt moved to write Sal's mother a letter, to ask her what her name was, to ask her how she was, and to ask her what she could teach me. So that project just kind of launched more of the same, where I decided and felt called to return to stories that I've heard over and over. And these include fairy tales, fables, Bible stories, family lore, myths, television commercials, and to listen to them in new ways. To make new meaning of their depictions of motherhood and care, as I reckoned with my own role as a mother and daughter of a mother, and as someone who wants to live in a world where we take better care of each other. Over the course of writing this book, my own mother nearly died, my father did die, and collectively we lived through a global pandemic. I found that I was mapping a constellation of figures that have shaped me and my understanding of care. I wrote these essays in part to invite readers to map their own, to follow whatever mothers, bears, or blueberries would help them better understand themselves and their own hunger and capacity for care. Thank you.
So a book about Disney World might seem a sort of strange topic for someone who is ostensibly a serious philosopher. And that's kind of a view that I would have had of the project for most of my career, most of my adult life, until the summer of 2021, when I was with my wife and kids at Epcot, waiting in line for the Frozen Ever After attraction back in World Showcase. We had waited for about 45 minutes or so. And if you know the attraction, it's an indoor river boat ride featuring the animatronic characters from the Frozen movies that lasts about 2 minutes if you're stretching it. And in that moment, waiting for this attraction, I had this thought that, oh, this is weird and philosophically interesting. Why do people go to theme parks? And why, in particular for me, who had taken my family to Disney World for a few years at that point, had I come to have sort of an affection and attachment for it? And was this something that I could make sense of? And so subsequently at Epcot, and the rest of our visit that time in Florida, topics for chapters began to click into place and pop up in a way that they never had for me before, as my philosophical radar kind of pinged off a whole bunch of stuff at Disney World, and what resulted was the Magic Kingdom and the Meaning of Life. 2 chapters that I just want to highlight here briefly. Chapter 1, I look at the experience of navigating Disney World with my intellectually disabled daughter, who in the early years when we went was often greeted as a princess when we would get to an attraction, a greeting that simultaneously rubbed me the wrong way and prompted some reflection on why it rubbed me the wrong way. And I kind of explore that philosophically, therapeutically in this essay, and grow to have actually an appreciation for the princesses of the Disney industrial complex, and some parallels actually between the world of the Disney princesses and my daughter, who actually, you know, the princesses often strive to be seen as individuals in a world where they're confined to their position, something that I think creates interesting analogies with disability. Chapter 5 is about the hipster fallacy. I call the hipster fallacy. This is the false belief that if things are popular, they must be bad. And sort of dismissing the hipster fallacy is sort of easy philosophically, but I think hipsters, painted with a broad brush, are wrong for interesting reasons, and reasons actually that latch on to a lot of the connections that many of us develop with cultural products. And so I sort of explore, the hipsters are wrong, but we can take some lessons from the way they get at things. Other topics include the paradox of hedonism, why if you want to have a really good time, it's wrong to try to have a really good time. Lessons we can learn from waiting in line, the benefits of anticipatory pleasures. The problematic fact that we're often attached to cultural products that are produced by soulless corporations. And then my final chapter in the book is about Epcot, my sort of a love letter to Epcot, which I actually think presents a compelling cosmopolitan view of the world, and in so doing, actually, as a theme park, constitutes an interesting political argument. So I wrote the book for a popular audience, for people who don't know philosophy, might not even like philosophy, who don't know Disney, might not even like Disney, and I hope I have interesting things to say about all the topics that I address. I look forward to hearing people's reactions to it as it makes its way out in the world. Thanks.
In 1882, the word telepathy was coined to describe the extraordinary ability of one mind to directly communicate with another mind. Strangely enough, the term was not created by any of the occult groups so popular during the Victorian era, but by a scientific organization called the Society for Psychical Research, or SPR. When I first heard about the SPR during my second year of graduate school, I was shocked to learn that it studied paranormal phenomena like haunted houses and mediums and precognition using empirical methods. I was equally shocked to learn that famous authors like Virginia Woolf and Arthur Conan Doyle were inspired by their theories. These discoveries also spurred several questions. What happened to these paranormal ideas when psychical research, also known as parapsychology, fell out of favor? How and why do they persist in our hyper-scientific era despite the lack of evidence? What new forms do they take, and what role does literature play in their development? These questions reside at the heart of Parascientific Revolutions, the science and culture of the paranormal, which was recently published by University of Minnesota Press. Parascientific Revolutions examines the evolution of the paranormal mind across literature and science in the second half of the 20th century. While most scholars have ignored this time period, I find it fascinating because the paranormal radically transformed as it engaged with new sciences like microbiology, as well as new literary genres like ethnic fiction. My book has 5 body chapters, each focused on a different paranormal power: telekinesis, precognition, clairvoyance, telepathy, and spirit communication. In chapter 1, for instance, I examine how precognition was rejuvenated in the 1950s when quantum physicists theorized the possibility of faster-than-light particles. This scientifically authorized faster-than-light thought and the possibility of seeing the future, which quickly made its way into science fiction works like Philip K. Dick's Valis and Alan Moore's Watchmen. In chapter 3, which I think is the best chapter, I investigate the revival of clairvoyance, the ability to see distant places with your mind, when the US military decided this ability would be really useful for spying on Russia during the Cold War. And this chapter follows the creation of a new clairvoyant method called remote viewing, how the CIA developed it into the top-secret Stargate project from 1972 to 1995, and how its intellectual architect was also a writer of science fiction novels, psychic how-to manuals, and softcore erotica. Even if you don't believe in the paranormal, I hope you can see that its scientific and political history is incredibly captivating. So if you want to learn more about how microbes can explain telekinesis or how your brain is actually an intergalactic antenna, please check out Parascientific Revolutions. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us this afternoon to honor the remarkable creative and scholarly achievements of our faculty. I want to extend a particular thanks to our participants, our presenters, the SLAM speakers who shared their work so dynamically, and every author and artist recognized today. To continue exploring these achievements and to see a full record of the works honored today, I invite you all to visit the newly launched Authors and Artists website. There is a QR code, or there will be shortly, on this screen. And there are also QR codes on some of the tables there. Please go to that website. You will learn a lot more about not only the works that were presented, but the ones where only the names and the titles were read. Also, the displays along the wall will remain in place until the end of this semester, so please come back and spend more time with these works. As we conclude the formal program, we invite you to stay and enjoy the refreshments, continue the conversations with your colleagues. We are also privileged to have our social time accompanied by Jerry Sun, a student of Dr. Larry Weng, who will be playing the piano for us. Thank you again for coming, and please enjoy the rest of the afternoon.